Yeah, I think a lot of people who do something like an ocean row or climbing a mountain or taking on these challenges find themselves searching for something, searching for a change, searching for a lesson. And sometimes you don't even know what you're searching for, but you know that taking a step in a new direction is going to get you closer than taking steps in the same direction you've been going.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson. As an avid traveler, global nomad, and someone who considers himself a citizen of the world, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. My hope in creating this podcast is to inspire you to take the leap of faith and to design the life of your dreams. For me, that includes connecting with like-minded individuals and creating a community of souls living their best lives out, in, and around the world. Each week, you'll hear stories and conversations from fellow travelers who have figured out how to incorporate travel as a key component in their daily lives. Their stories are beautiful and inspiring, just like you. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. So let's do this. Here we go. Oh my word. I am so stoked to share today's conversation and guest with you. This conversation is so inspiring, and I had such a good time during the interview, and it's such a beautiful conversation. I think you will enjoy it as well. My guest today is Sophia Dennison Johnston, otherwise known as DJ to her teammates. She is an athlete, coach, speaker, and body worker. After many years of flatwater rowing, she joined a team with 3 other women. Their team spent 34 days rowing 2,400 miles across the Pacific Ocean, breaking the all-women's world speed record in the process. She now continues her work as a deep tissue and orthopedic massage practitioner, as well as coaching teams on how to better work together. Her greatest mission is to help show others how to listen to their bodies and to each other, and how to achieve high performance as a team without sacrificing joy through courage and communication. So without further ado, Sophia Dennison Johnston. Hello, 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 beautiful souls. I am so happy to be back here and with you today and share the story of this amazing woman who has accomplished such monumental feats. And I can't wait for you to hear more about it. So welcome to the show, Sophia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I guess I will actually start out and say I have to get my fangirl out of the way. I'm so amazed at what you have done. And I too have this dream and like a bucket list that I've never actually told anyone publicly. And I've always had this bucket list desire to row across the Atlantic. That's been a thing that I've wanted to do. So I just have to get that out of the way to start, because you have done something even grander and you have crossed the Pacific Ocean. So yeah, I feel like you can liken that to Sir Edmund Hillary climbing Mount Everest. So it's amazing. And so could you start out and tell us a little bit about your background and sort of what was your lifestyle leading up to this proposition even coming your way?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think it's so cool to hear, first of all, that you want to do the Atlantic. It's totally doable. You got this. Yeah, I think a lot of people who do something like an ocean row or climbing a mountain or taking on these challenges find themselves searching for something, searching for a change, searching for a lesson. And sometimes you don't even know what you're searching for, but you know that taking a step in a new direction is going to get you closer than taking steps in the same direction you've been going. So I think my lifestyle before this proposition was that I've been a flat water rower most of my life. I started when I got into high school. I started rowing at my public high school. I'm in Berkeley, and I kept rowing in college at UCLA. I kept rowing after college. I moved all over the country pursuing elite flat water rowing. I think a lot of what I was looking for in my pursuit was, number one, I loved what I was doing, but number two, I felt like I had a lot to prove. And I just never felt like I had done myself justice. Like I hadn't really peaked, and I didn't want to quit rowing until I had truly peaked. But I just got to a point, I think elite rowing is kind of funny because there's already very limited sponsorship opportunities and support in sports that you do see sponsorship in, like cycling or running. And as a rower, it's easy to be like, we don't have what those sports have. And the reality is there's still so many athletes who are continuing without any support in even those sports as well. But in rowing, there really is, it's an expensive thing to pursue, and there's not really sponsorship opportunities. And so it really is a grind. So I was very much grinding away, living to paycheck, really just twice a day or more every day, living for my sport and trying to be a master. And I just got to a point where, number one, I finally was able to give myself the resources that I need to perform at the caliber I was wanting to perform at. So I felt satisfied, like I had proved what I needed to prove to myself. And I also felt like, man, there's just more to life than rowing. And I've been saying no to all of these things in my life for so long, like all these other interests. Like I love backpacking, I love music, I love all these other things. And I've just had to say no, or my family, in order to prioritize rowing. And I'm just ready to not have to say no to that stuff. I just want to say yes. So I decided to step away from rowing after Olympic trials in 2021. And it was in that stepping away that the owner of the boat that we ended up rowing came up to me, or gave me a call, and proposed that I do the Pacific with his boat. And it was just good timing. I was like, I'm going to say yes to stuff. And then right when I decided that, it was an opportunity showed up, and it was like, well, okay, you said you're going to say yes. Here's your first test.
And I love that you said, you're like, all right, I'm done. I've done what I wanted. I came here and accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And you sort of let the accomplishment not be the goal anymore, or not be the focus. The more wasn't the focus. And when you let go of the more, here comes this monumental opportunity. It was like in letting go that you attracted this even greater experience.
Yeah. And it can seem like it's an even greater experience, I think, from afar. And I think having experienced it all, like the ocean was this huge event that's going to be a defining turning point in my life, probably forever. But also it is nothing compared to the amount of labor and work and effort and hardship that I went through for flat water rowing. And I think that's kind of a nice lesson for people who maybe don't recognize the amount of sacrifice and the amount of love they're putting into stuff already. Like you don't have to go do something grandiose to prove that, or to love something, or to have a big experience. And I think the ocean row is definitely more visible, and we got a lot of traction on social media and stuff like that. But, I trained for the ocean row for 15 months, and then it took about a month. So all in all, that's a 16-month experience. Whereas I was doing flat water rowing for over 12 years. And so I think that's kind of been an interesting thing to look at in afterwards, to get a lot of recognition for the ocean row, when most of the work in my life has been put towards something completely different. But it is that understanding that I think sometimes we might be in a situation that's not working for us, but we feel like we shouldn't leave it because we've invested so much. And it's maybe that lesson of just because you've invested a lot, and it doesn't mean that it's worth staying. And maybe if you need something different, then just trust that and pivot.
Yeah. It's like this, I think in business, that's called the spent cost. I'm a person, I've traveled the world by sea. My first open ocean crossing was actually, I was on a 6-man or 6-woman team on in an outrigger canoe. And so we raced. We did the World Championship long distance outrigger canoe race, and it's called the Nawahine o Kekai, and it's from Molokai to Oahu. And so for me, the thing that I loved about that particular sport is you're in a team, but it's such an individual activity at the same time. You work together, but separately. And it was the combination of so many things that I loved. And so I'm curious for you, what is it that really fills your soul and filled your soul for all of these years with rowing?
Yeah, I think you've like really touched on it with your experience. And it's cool because we did that exact channel crossing to finish our row, which was so fun. The waves were really exciting in that area. But yeah, you definitely touched on it. I think it's this idea of like everyone is going through their own journey, and to be able to come together and work for something greater than the individual is just a very special experience. And I think that in those rowing or outrigger communities, there is a understanding among the team of what dedication means that is it's held with a lot more care than what I find in like the general population, I would say. Not to, bash on the general population, but I think it's really a blessing to be in an environment where people are so dedicated to showing up for each other. So I think that whether it's the ocean, whether it's flat water, whether it's any other kind of environment where you're in a team, it is that beautiful mix of like, how do I get the most out of myself for myself, but also so that I can show up for my teammates. And that's just such a special experience.
It's such a beautiful thing. One of the things when I was reading about you and your teammates, that your mission or your ideology was to elevate each other's greatness. And so was this something that you developed together as your team, or like in conversation? Did you decide what kind of team you wanted to be? Like, how did you guys come to such a beautiful mission statement?
Yeah, I think that mission statement carried so much for us. It was really important. And we had a mentor who was encouraging us to come up with a mission statement as like one of the first things that we did. Mm-hmm. And so as I was finding people to join the team, like at first it was just me and Libby, and we knew that we wanted to go fast. Like we wanted to go as fast as possible. We knew we wanted to be competitive. And we had kind of these ideas about what kind of team we wanted to be, but we couldn't really sit down and flesh out that mission statement until all 4 members were solidified. And then once that did happen, our first time meeting in person, we sat down and we had all taken time on our own to draft up what mission statements we thought would be appropriate and what our team values were. And then we kind of sit down and we analyze them together. And what was really important to us was to not just find a mission statement that stated, how competitive we were going to be, or that we were going to make jokes or something or be kind, but we wanted a mission statement that was going to really be able to drive decisions on how we behave, because there are so many moments. And the example we were given was like, let's say there's like a really, really terrible headwind and you're only going a half a knot. The question is like, do you throw out your para anchor and drift a couple miles backwards, but get to rest? Or do you like go only at half a knot and barely make any ground? And then you're just totally exhausted. And like the decision at that point could be divided on the boat. But if you have a mission statement that states like, no, we're getting there as fast as possible, or like, no, we're going to focus on taking care of each other, that decision might change based off of what that mission statement is. And yeah, I think when we landed on elevate each other's greatness, it just clicked. It was really obvious to us, because I think it can be easy when you're in survival mode to really be concerned about your own personal safety and kind of take the other people in the boat for granted, or not see their needs, or do behaviors that are kind of selfish and maybe don't actually have the best interest of the team in mind. And so elevate each other's greatness was designed to help us always bring our focus back to how we can make the best choices for the team as a whole, and understanding like the best thing for the team is going to be the best thing for you because you're on the team. So yeah, it was something that we just talked about, and we eventually found amidst all the various words people were throwing out. And it was really a driver on our team.
And it's so beautiful because, and I think you said it perfectly when you said, if you're taking care of one another and then you're taking care of the team. And in a scenario such as you were in, you really do have to work as a cohesive unit. And that mission statement, providing the focus, allowed you to be cohesive, because I can imagine that your physical bodies can probably withstand much more than any of us might ever know. But the thing that can be make or break would be the mindset. And so this mission statement sort of clarified that mindset and seemed to almost give you this focus for the good times and the bad times and made it easier to move forward.
Absolutely. And I think it was cool too, because it's like you experienced that, or I experienced, we took so much care figuring out and making the implicit of like, of course we care about each other. Of course we love each other. Of course we're going to try and support each other. Like we made it explicit, and we not only did we make it explicit that we trusted each other or cared about each other, but we made it like really like in words, in writing. Okay, how do we do that? Like we have to seek understanding when we're butting heads, not try and win. We have to really listen to each other. And like, that's the skill that a lot of people don't realize is a skill. It's like, oh, so-and-so is a good listener. So-and-so is not a great listener. It's like, no, you can learn to be a better listener. And it's actually your responsibility to do that if you're going to be a part of a team or have a relationship that is healthy. So it was a lot of work. It was a messy process getting that done, but it was so fascinating coming back to land after being at sea with these women where we were all, so committed to showing up for each other, and then realizing, oh, not every relationship in our lives has been taken care of like that. And not everyone in our lives, like we haven't sat down and talked about what kind of language we use when we talk to each other. It's just like, oh, whatever, we'll just, gossip or something, but it's like, oh, wow. Like I felt so heard and understood, and I was given the space to have a bad day. And now I want to make sure that the relationships that I have at home all the time also are capable of holding that space for me, and that I'm capable of doing that with other people. So it was a cool, like little vacuum to reset communication styles or skills and practices, and then come back into the real world. And it was very overwhelming at first, but I think it's a cool thing to be able to look back and be like, okay, like that was really special. I want to make sure that I'm still putting in that effort with my relationships on land.
Wow, what a beautiful gift. That was one of the things I was curious about, was what gifts or lessons were you able to take away and apply to your day-to-day life? And so I think that, those kinds of understandings truly change your life. When you can improve communication and you can improve your relationships, and you have like a clearer filter to see, everything, all relationships get better. So what a beautiful, probably unexpected gift that you received.
Yeah. And I think the biggest part of that is like the ability to be honest with yourself and others. It's like, honesty and shame don't live in the same house. Like they don't really work well together. And I think the interesting thing about the row is you're with these people 24/7. It's not like work where you can like compartmentalize if you're having a bad day and just like show up for the meeting. You're going to see the worst of everyone at some point, and to be able to understand that and accept it. And then it makes it less scary and easier to be honest about where you're at, how prepared you are, what is scaring you, because everyone has their moments of not being at their best. So there is just less of a need to project perfection. And I think that just living a life of like a much higher degree of honesty of like where I'm at and how I'm able to communicate that has also been a huge gift.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Who would have thought, right? When you said yes, that this was one of the beautiful gifts you get to take away.
Yeah. I was like, I know my butt's going to hurt. I don't know.
My arms are going to be tired and
Yeah.
my body is going to be tired. Just where we can kind of have a little bit of an understanding, like tell us a little bit about what's the day-to-day life when you actually set out and, launched from the shore side. Like, what was your schedule? What kind of space did you have? Like, tell us. And there's 4 people. So are the 4 of you rowing continuously, or is there a rotation? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so there are four of us on the boat. There's a stern cabin and a bow cabin. The boat's about 28 feet long, and the cabins are very narrow, very small. They extend below the deck, so you can straighten your legs out, but your legs are underneath the decks where people are rowing. So not a lot of space. And we did shifts of 2 hours on, 2 hours off around the clock. So every 2 hours, you're switching with whoever you share your cabin with. And then the stern cabin would switch on the even hours and the bow cabin switched on the odd hours. So that way you would get an hour with one person and then an hour with the other person. And you would never share rowing time with whoever you were in the cabin with. And I mean, this is all just like, you can pick how you're going to divide it up, but all the world records that have been set have been using that timetable. And the reason being, essentially 2 hours is about the most amount of time that you can actually be pulling pretty hard on the oars. And once it goes to more than that, it gets pretty pitiful. And I mean, you're not sleeping much either way. So the hour more of rowing isn't really worth another hour or 45 minutes of sleep, because like you're going to get equal amounts of both no matter what. So the priority was just like making sure that the rowing was in small enough chunks that they were manageable and we could actually pull pretty hard. So that was the schedule. It's pretty brutal, but your body does this amazing thing in that it adapts to whatever situation you put it in. And that goes any direction. Like if you're, sitting at home all day on a computer, it adapts to that too. And eventually you won't notice how stiff and stuck you are. And that happened to us. Like eventually we didn't notice how sleep deprived we were. Like I felt just like I feel right now. I felt totally normal, which is a little terrifying because it makes me wonder, like, what am I putting my body through at home where I'm feeling exactly the same as when I'm like 3 weeks to a transoceanic row where I'm rowing for 12 hours a day. So yeah. And then we mostly ate freeze-dried meals. We had jet boils on board. So we would just boil water and then add them to these meal packs and wait 20 minutes. And the way we did it, we had a desalinator as well. So we were able to kind of make fresh water out of salt water every day. It took about an hour and a half. And the way we did it was just each of us was responsible for a meal. So we ended up making 4 meals a day for everyone. So it's like I would do dinner. So I would make 4 meals and like I got mine hot, but like whoever was on the oars was going to probably have theirs cold unless we put it in a thermos. And that way, just everyone, it was consistent and everyone got fed and you didn't have to cook every time. And then we had lots of snack packs and sometimes like you could always make yourself an extra one if you wanted more food. But yeah, I mean, the schedule was pretty monotonous. It was wake up, row, get off the oars, clean yourself off. Hygiene was very important because of the salt. And, you just can't get sick because if you get sick or something gets infected or something like that, it's just not going to get better until you get home. So hygiene's a big deal. And then you eat and then you go to sleep and then you repeat for a month. It's very simple. If something broke, you'd have to take your sleeping shift and use it to fix whatever broke. But yeah.
And so you have 2 rowers at a time?
Yeah. So we did 2 rowers at a time. There were times where we tried to do 3 and it was interesting because we didn't want to like have a rule, like make an authoritarian decision of like, everyone has to do 3 or everyone has to do an extra hour or an extra 30 minutes or something like that, because one of our big values is trust. And we were just kind of like, look, this seat is available. If anyone wants to take more time on the oars, go for it. But we found that when we did take the extra shift, our rowing quality was worse on our next one. And we just prioritized taking care of ourselves and being able to like put our full focus on our on shifts. So we just did mostly 2 people. There were only a couple shifts where we did 3 people rowing.
And do you have a chase boat?
So we didn't. There was a boat on call, especially for the beginning, that could have come should we need anything? But no, everyone who does this event, this race, this row, has to take a number of sea survival courses. And one of the cool things about that is that you go to a classroom and you learn personal survival at sea in a classroom with a bunch of other mariners who have nothing to do with ocean rowing. And it's kind of cool because you realize like, oh, like everyone out here took the same class. Like we all know what to say on the radio, the order of things, how the radio works, what all these different beacons are, what's going to happen in emergency. So you're very like well educated on rescue protocols by the time you start. And it just didn't like seem necessary to us to have a chase boat. If we were prepared to do it, like we were prepared to do it. And there were plenty of safety options aside from a chase boat. Yeah.
Is it the STCW? Is that the course that you take?
We did the one in San Diego.
Yeah, I did. They also have them in Fort Lauderdale. They are very thorough. You get to flip a life raft and do all kinds of things. So it's interesting when you actually get in and you see like, oh, this is like, we're in the middle of the ocean. This feels pretty spacious when you start out. And then you're like, yeah, you know.
Yeah. So if you can imagine, like they take you into like this big lifeboat that you would see on like a container ship or a cruise ship or something. Our boat was like a mini one of those with the middle cut out. And it was kind of cool to see that actually, because it's like this thing is designed with basically no power to just like survive horrible conditions so that you can get rescued. And it essentially looks like our boat. So we're like, okay, we're going to be okay. This thing's designed to survive these crazy conditions. And that's what we found the first time we had rough seas. It was like, this thing's basically an oceanic Jeep Wrangler or something, you know, it's an off-roading vehicle with rowing seats in it. So that was a very cool experience. It gave us a lot of confidence. And I think in general, like any sort of technical education or course, especially as a woman, I think that a lot of times, you know, like if you go in a boat or if you go in a fancy car, there's kind of like this cultural assumption that you're a passenger and that you're not like actively in charge of anything.
Yeah.
It can just be so empowering, I think, to be confident that like if something happened, you would be able to take care of yourself and or others, and you'd know what's going on and you'd know how to get help and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's cool because like you could go through your whole life and never know how to take care of your own safety in those situations unless you actually seek those opportunities. Whereas I think it's a little bit more culturally like imparted on, and, you know, that's obviously a stereotype, but it definitely felt really good to be able to feel competent.
Yeah. Knowing that your teammates have the same information. And so also trusting that they know what to do as well. You know, it's like, okay, something happens. We all have an understanding of what's the protocol. What do we need to do? So yeah.
You can never rely on just one person knowing something, because if anything happens to them, then you're screwed. So
yeah, totally. What kinds of things did you see when you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? So wildlife, like what were some of the moments that you can still see when you close your eyes today and think about them?
I think one of my favorite parts of it was the clouds, just like realizing how you pretty much never have a 360-degree view of the horizon in life. You know, there's buildings or trees or mountains or something like that. And so it was really incredible to just see, you know, you can see what the weather is going to do because you see the clouds and how they're moving and how they're forming and all the colors. And you could be like, yep, that's a rain cloud. We're going to be wet in 10 minutes. Awesome. I like the clouds a lot. And in terms of wildlife, the opposite of wildlife, we saw a lot of trash, unfortunately. And I think my favorite wildlife thing is maybe less exciting than like a whale or a dolphin or something. But there was this bird that would come and circle our boat almost every day. At least, I don't think we saw her for the last 4 days, but at least until day 30, we were seeing this bird. And she would come circle us like every dawn and every dusk. And I think it may have been like a juvenile or something that got led astray because it didn't really look like the other birds by the time we were like 100 miles offshore. We were like, I don't know if you're supposed to be here. It was really special, I think, because we kind of just assigned her as like our spirit guide.
Mm-hmm.
And to everyone, she was a different person. And I mean, I'm saying she just because we decided that every creature we saw was going to be a woman, but that's made up. But to everyone,
Maybe not. Yeah.
yeah, we don't know. She could have
Yeah.
been. I don't know. But yeah, we named her Rio, short for glorious. And yeah, to everyone, she was a different person. A lot of us have lost loved ones, and she was kind of them coming in and checking in on us. Or yeah, so I think it was cool how she was a bird that we called Rio, and like she was herself, but also she was someone special to each of us. And I think that was cool just to feel this connection with this creature. And it's like we're both in an environment that maybe we're not supposed to be in. Like she's a bird and we're humans, and then we're like at sea. So there was this sweet connection that we had with her. And I think that was kind of really special. There were other, we saw big fish and tuna jumping out of the water, and we got hit by flying fish. These little ones flop around on the boat. And there were these beautiful tropical birds as we got closer to Hawaii. We saw some whales at the very beginning. So we saw some animals for sure, but I think that little bird was kind of my favorite little thing because we had a different kind of spiritual connection to her than what we had with the other animals.
I love that. It's like you had your own spirit escort.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you guys were rowing during the day, what kind of things would you do when you were passing the time?
We did a lot of singing, definitely. A lot of chit-chatting. I'm usually someone who lives very in the present, and it's probably the most like stewing over the past and future tripping and daydreaming about the future that I've probably ever done, just because there was so much fun. And, thinking of friends that I hadn't talked to in a long time. And it was fun. We had the satellite phone, so I would like call people, but it was an international number, and most of the time they wouldn't pick up. So I'd leave a voicemail, and then I'd get an email a couple of days later. I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that was you. How do I call you back? And I loved listening to audiobooks. Adrian and I both listened to lots of audiobooks. Brooke and Libby they're more musical and less audiobooks. But yeah, I mean, it's only 2 hours at a time that you have to entertain yourself. So it's actually it wasn't that boring. I thought I was going to be more bored, but every time you got up, the weather was different, and it was a new puzzle to figure out how to row most efficiently. And then you got to listen to some music or a book or talk, and then go to sleep.
And as far as your physical sort of taxation, you said your body adapts, and you're surprised or it adapted quite easily. But I would imagine it would take a while to get to the point where that feels normal or like this is just what you do. So were there some major like physical challenges that you had to go through to get to that point? Or was it just kind of smooth sailing, so to speak?
I think that most of the physical challenges in that regard were actually in our training. Like we did a lot of training rows, and we spent just a lot of time sitting on the rowing machine or in the boat. And I think my body was much more uncomfortable in training than it was for most of the crossing. And then the physical discomfort for the crossing came more at the end, when I was just the overuse of my fingers grabbing onto the oar, or like it felt like my butt bones were like piercing through my glutes. So it was a bit later. I think it wasn't as much of an adjustment period physically for the first bit, aside from the sleep deprivation was definitely, we were kind of just out of it for the first 4 or 5 days. And then we were more present when we were awake, but still kind of like auditory hallucinations happening. And then the other thing that is like a big physical adaptation is just seasickness. So I was pretty okay on the seasickness, but the rest of the team was medicated for the entire crossing. And what would happen is you get kind of used to whatever conditions you were at, and then they would get really calm for a couple of days. And then when the sea came back up and the wind started coming back, you'd have to like readjust to the rolly movement of the water. And so I think that was really the hardest thing. Like I didn't eat very much food at all the first 4 or 5 days. And it took a while to like build an appetite because I was just kind of nauseous.
And when it comes to such a physical feat, we touched base a little bit about the mindset. So were there points where you just felt like breaking points where you're like, is this ever going to be finished? Are we done? Are we there yet? And if so, what are some of the ways that you were able to work through those?
Yeah, I think we all had moments where we were just like, I'm so over this. I think it was 3:30, something like that. Like there's still 4 or 5 days left. And we had just been like in just really frustrating conditions. Like on paper, they're supposed to be helpful because we had wind in the direction we were trying to go. But like the current was off, or we were getting swell from two different directions that were like none of which were the direction we were trying to go. And I just remember it was exhausting. We were just pulling so hard every shift. Then I came out, we had a team meeting every morning, and I was just like, I'm so freaking exhausted. And I just cried a little bit, and everyone was like, yep, me too. And I think it was just, I think just being able to like say it and kind of get it off your chest and then be like, and I know that the only way is through, and like there's nothing to do about it other than keep going. And that's the thing, like Adrienne on the team, she's an Ironman triathlete before doing this. And she was saying like an Ironman is almost harder because number one, the intensity is just very high. Like for the row, yeah, you're pulling as hard as you can, but like as hard as you can for a month is like a lot less intense than running an Ironman or something. But she's also like, yeah, when you do an Ironman, you can quit at any point. Like it's physically possible to just be like, yep, I quit. For this, you just can't. And so I think it's a little less like looking for mental strategies to get through something because you don't have a choice. Like there's no opting out after a certain point. Like
yeah,
if
you're
close
committed
enough to California, you could opt out and like row to Santa Barbara or row to Mexico or something, and it would shorten the trip. But like once you're a certain distance out, like you're out, there's one way home and it's finishing the row or getting rescued. But getting rescued is a really dangerous experience. You have to get off one boat and get into another boat in the open ocean. And then you go wherever that boat goes. Like it's not simple. So I think that's something that's pretty funny. It's like, I don't know that I necessarily like learned how to get through hard things other than like make it impossible to quit. Like that was our strategy.
You have zero options besides continue rowing.
You have to get to the end. Like it's your only choice. So yeah.
Yeah. And I can imagine it's probably might be even more challenging when you get close to the islands and you can begin to see them, but you still have so far to go. We still have to keep going.
Yeah. I think honestly, it's like the question is less like, how do you keep going when something sucks or is really hard? And it's more like, okay, this thing sucks or it's really hard. Am I going to have a good day or a bad day? Like, am I going to let that ruin my mood? And sometimes it does. And like you do, and you're grumpy. But like, I think more of the lesson is like, if it's going to suck anyway, do I just sit here and talk about how much this sucks? Or do I like try and talk about something else? Because it's really a choice of how much you're going to suffer because of this thing that you can't control, or like this thing that you chose. It's like, well, you chose it. Now you're here. So like, how much do you want to suffer because of it? You choose, because like the outcome is the same either way. You still have to row the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's true. All about perspective. Yeah. You can enjoy it or you can be miserable. It's up to you.
Yeah.
What did it feel like for you when you stepped on land? Were you just like, I did this thing? I'm sure there were a range of motions. So what was it like when you were greeted by everyone in the cheers? Like, how did it feel at completion?
It was very surreal. When we left San Francisco, I mean, we had our friends or our family members there for the most part, but there was not necessarily high confidence how we were going to be successful, or like not even successful, but like that we were going to make it to Hawaii. I think there was like genuine concern that we were going to be like calling for a rescue within 5 days. And it was very quiet. Like no one really knew that we were leaving. And like we were rowing out towards the Golden Gate Bridge, and kayakers would pass and be like, where are you guys going? We'd be like, Hawaii. And while we were at sea, our campaign just picked up a lot of traction without us really knowing about it. Like we didn't have any service. To get service out there, we have this device that you aim at a satellite, and you have to like keep aiming it at the satellite in order to keep your service. And then you have enough service to just like send a message. So like we had this social media guy who we would just send like a video or a picture while we were out at sea. And then separately on the inReach, we might message our safety officer and be like, we're live. This is what's going on. But anyway, I remember on day 5, we finally pulled the satellite thing out and opened up Telegram or WhatsApp or whatever app we were using. And he was like, you guys got 26,000 followers on Instagram in the last couple of days. We were like, what? That's crazy. So it's like you leave land on this journey that's so isolated, like the farthest away you've ever been from society. And then at the same time, like the most visible you've ever been to society. And so coming in was very surreal because there were a lot of strangers that like had made signs and were cheering us in. And it was really beautiful. And my family was there, my boyfriend was there. And I mean, we were definitely happy. And then I crashed within like 15 minutes of getting on land. I was like, someone carry me to my room. And we had this Good Morning America interview. And if you like watch it back, I'm like totally glazed over. I just am so out of it because I'm so tired. But yeah, lots of emotions. I think generally just like, hey, we didn't need to get rescued. We did it. Who are all these people? This is nice.
The statement where you are the most isolated, but have become the most visible, like that is pretty wild. I mean, I don't know if you are literally rowing to the most isolated island chain on the entire globe. Like it is the furthest away from any other landmass of any other island chain in the entire planet. So that's pretty crazy that you guys gathered 26,000 supporters while you were.
That was only the beginning too. It's like it got up to like over 40,000 people. But it was very cool because I think we didn't have in our mission statement anything to do with like inspiring people or anything like that. But there was this one message I remember seeing, like a comment, and it was like a mother with a newborn. And because our social media guy would send us like all the comments that they had said so that we could read them. And it was a new mother. And she said, like, I'm a new mom. This is so hard, but I know that when I get up at like 3 a.m. to a crying baby, that at least 2 of you are up with me. And like, I'm even like choking up now. I was like, that is like, this could have been a traumatic, horrible experience and it would be worth it for like that one comment. Yeah. So it was really like an unexpected blessing to be able to like feel connected to so many people, even when that wasn't even the point. Like we would have done it if no one watched, but it happened to go that way. So it was very unexpected and very lucky.
And so beautiful because I know for, young women need to see more women doing great things and doing it not for the attention or like that's not the mission. You're doing it out of a pure love for the fact that this is something you want to do in life, like pure and simple. Like this is something I want to do this. This sounds fun. I want to see how my physical body can handle this. I want to push myself to the limits. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about your story and the story of your teammates is just you did it for the pure love and the pure reason of testing your own limits. And women in the world need to see other women doing that. It's just so inspirational. And all of when I envision you guys doing the crossing and seeing all of these young girls, on their Instagram and watching this going, whoa, look at them, like, look at what they're doing in the world and just inspiring them as young women to say, hey, if she can, so can I. So I think that's such a beautiful gift that you gave to everyone. So thank you.
Oh, that's nice. For us, like the big thing that it boiled down to was like doing something on our own terms. And like having this vacuum of other forms of authority all of a sudden and, really choosing what we were doing. And I think in the world, not all people, let alone women, feel like they have the agency to do what they want with their body, mind, or anything, And I think it's just that idea of like, there are ways to do things on your own terms. And in fact, like when we do things on our own terms, like it's a good result.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so I can imagine that you get asked to give speeches quite often now. Is that something that's come out of this? Is that something that you did before? Motivational speaking, public speaking, has that been in your repertoire before you crossed the ocean?
I was a rowing coach for a while. So in terms of like public speaking or kind of having these kinds of conversations with people, that's something I was comfortable with. But definitely it's become a thing since the ocean row, which I'm very thankful for and blessed for those experiences. Any way that I can connect with young people. And I think like the other thing for us was just like looking at alternate structure in how we dealt with leadership and task organization on our team than a traditional hierarchy, and just looking at like what is accomplishment and success and excellence look like in like a not so, I mean, I think masculine's like the wrong word, but patriarchal style.
Sort of like collegiate athletes and things like that sort of structure of program in that.
Yeah. And I think in rowing, especially like in rowing, you are kind of just like a cog in a big machine and you just kind of do what you're told. And it's this idea of like, okay, now we had this big project and there's not just one right way to do it. And there's not an obvious way to do it. And let's collaborate, and it's going to be messy, but like, let's figure out, what does our leadership structure look like? It doesn't just look like the captain, skipper, and then all the people just following directions. Like everyone is responsible for their own things. And I think that it's really interesting to me to try and facilitate conversations with teams going forward about finding your own mission statement, like how Elevate Each Other's Greatness was such an impactful mission statement for us. So it's been really fun to kind of go into public speaking and doing workshops with teams and people who are interested in maybe opening the door to revising what leadership and teamwork looks like in their environment.
And I think that is the feminine way of leading. And I think that's, thankfully, we are moving into a world where there is more feminine leadership. And so it's a beautiful collaborative way to ask, how can this be great for all of us? And so,
exactly. Yeah, that's a great little sentence there.
It's so great. And so for you, do you have a what's next? Like, what's the vision for your future that you hold?
Kind of. I'm actually going through quite a transition over here. I'm going to be moving to Utah in a couple of months. So I am hoping to do more workshops and speaking. And I'm kind of just exploring what opportunities are in that direction. Just with the move, it just gives me a bit more flexibility. So yeah, right now I'm in kind of a place where I've been cheering on other friends and not necessarily setting out big goals, big athletic goals for myself. I know those will come up again because I'm the kind of person who does those. But this year has really been about just like taking time to process my experience and try and apply it to the work that I do. And then also just showing up for other people, because so many people showed up for me to do this thing. Libby, who is on the boat, is getting ready for a 100-mile running race. So I'm going to be one of her supporters on that. My boyfriend just did this massive circumnavigation of the Alps via paraglider race, which was insane. So I just got to go cheer him on for that. So it's mostly just been like trying to support others in their own journeys right now.
That's beautiful. And it helps that you have friends that are doing wicked cool things.
Yeah, it does help. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful. I love that. But where are you in the world?
I'm in Santa Barbara right now, Santa Barbara, California. It's very beautiful here.
And was that your hub for training when you did this?
Yeah, it was. The Santa Barbara Channel is notorious for being pretty tumultuous conditions wise, but it just provided us with a great access to actual ocean conditions that we weren't finding up in the bay where the boat used to live up in the Bay Area. And when we went out in the bay, there was plenty of challenges and tides and traffic, but it wasn't really, we didn't see swell and things like that. So Santa Barbara was a really good training ground for this.
Awesome. And it's a beautiful place. So win-win.
And I already lived here. So that was nice too.
Yeah. Ticking all the winning boxes on that one. Cool. So we can start with the lightning round. We just have 4 questions. And so the first one is, what is a travel tip or an inside scoop about where you are in Santa Barbara?
For Santa Barbara, there is a lot to do outside. And so my travel tip for Santa Barbara would be try and get in as many bodies of water as you can. There's the ocean, there's creeks, there's a river in the backcountry, and just try and like get outside of like the main tourist streets, even though, they're awesome. There's lots of artisans selling cool things. Just like take advantage of the access to nature here. Like it's easy to park, everything's close. So take advantage of the access to nature.
Oh, I love that. And you're speaking my language with the try and get in as many bodies of water as you can. I'm like, yes.
Exactly. Diversify it up. There's hot springs, cold springs. There's a lot of options.
Ah, brilliant. And the second question is, what is a book that has inspired you?
A book that's inspired me is called It's What I Do by Lindsay Addario, who is a conflict war photojournalist. And it's really amazing. It's a memoir.
Cool. And the third question is, what is something that you can't leave home without? So if you're traveling or taking a trip or...
I can't leave home without sunscreen and a layer in case it gets cold. So yeah.
the two
essentials. A lot of time in the sun and I hate being cold. I can do it, but I don't have to. So I like having a layer.
That's fair. I'm with you. And then the last one is, what is at the top of your bucket list for a destination or adventure?
I actually don't know about a destination. I think adventure, I'd like to do an ultra distance run or hike, or I'd like to do maybe a through hike, and there's a lot to choose from. But I think that's kind of the next, when I'm ready for a big thing to do, I think it'll be in that direction.
And a through hike, like what's an example of a through hike?
Like the PCT, or I wouldn't do the whole PCT, but just like either like a 30-mile or 50-mile run or hike, like continuously.
Gotcha.
Or maybe like a multi-day trek, like a backpacking trip or something like that.
Well, I like it. Get out in nature again. I sense a theme here.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your beautiful inspiration and the clarity from your gifts that you've received through this adventure, and for continuing to challenge yourself and be better and grow and share it with all of us. Thank you so much.
Yay, thank you.
And happy travels. I enjoyed this conversation so much. I felt like I could speak with Sophia for hours and hours. And I find so much inspiration in her wisdom and the way that she shares her experiences with the world. Here are the key takeaways. Number 1, honesty and shame don't live in the same house. They don't work well together. The ability to be honest with yourself and others allows you to see the moment for what it is and let it pass. Everyone has moments of not being their best. A higher level of honesty allows you to take in the moment for what it is and not try and project perfection. Number 2, the human body is amazing. It adapts to any situation, and that can go both ways, whether you're stuck at a computer all day or rowing across an ocean. Look at all the ways in life that you might not be noticing the small changes and ways that you might be sacrificing. Number 3, the question is less about how you keep going when something sucks or is really bad, and is more about recognizing that this thing sucks and I'm going to either have a good day or a bad day. It's your choice. Am I going to let this ruin my mood, or do I choose something else? It's a choice over how much you are going to suffer. Number 4, creating a mission statement provides the framework for all moments, not just the good moments, but also moments of trial. It gives you a lens in which to see your scenario and to make decisions based on the best move for your entire team, your partnership, or your family. Number 5, there's not one way to do things. Consider what a different leadership style looks like. One where everyone has their own responsibility. Open the door to revise what teamwork and leadership looks like in that environment. Number 6, sometimes in life, it's less about accomplishing the big, noteworthy goals and more about recognizing the little things in life, the day-to-day time and effort put in to accomplish things. Sometimes the big goal is fleeting, but the time leading up to it is actually where your strength and your growth come from. Number 7, elevate one another's greatness. I think that says it all. I hope that Sophia and her teammates' journey, efforts, accomplishments, and wisdom inspire you to take the leap of faith and do the thing that scares you. Do that thing that's in front of you it might be holding you back. The fear of taking the leap, the fear of living your dream life, the fear of quitting your job, or the fear of finding a new job, or the fear of asking the girl out or asking the boy out, or the fear of anything that's holding you back. Know that it's all about the journey. And once you step into your bravery, so many miraculous things happen. So from my heart to yours today, I have faith in you. I know that you can accomplish your greatest dreams. I know that you have it within you to design your dream life. I know that you have all that you need to create the life that you desire and be the highest and best version of yourself that you see within you. Take Sophia and her teammates' journey as an example that as humans, we are all capable of great things. Until next time. The quote I would like to leave you with today comes from another ocean adventure. I thought it only fitting to quote Sir Ernest Shackleton today. He said, "Adventure should be 80%. I think this is manageable, but it's good to have that last 20% where you're right outside your comfort zone." I think that is a beautiful way to travel, to explore, to live life. Having 80% manageable and testing yourself just a little bit of the time can lead to tremendous growth over our lifetime. Thank you for listening today, and until next time. Thank you so much for showing up and listening to this episode. I know that there are so many things in life that you could be doing right now, and so it means a lot to me that you're here. There are so many more episodes coming your way, so if you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to review and follow us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know someone who might like to hear it, please share. Those little acts of kindness mean a lot and help more than you know. I appreciate your time and getting the opportunity to share this moment. I'd love to hear more from you. I'd love to connect, so reach out on social. You can find me on Instagram at Seafaring Wanderer. That's SeaFaringWanderer. And then you can join our Facebook group at Design Her Travel Podcast. I would love to connect, hear more from you. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of, places you'd like to hear about, and things you'd like to know how to do when designing your life. So thank you, everyone, and I'll be back soon.